All right, so we're ready to pot the clematis. Now I've got a little pot here. I've put half full of foam already just so I don't use so much clay. And I only did that because my pot is quite tall. If I had a shorter pot, then I would probably skip the foam so that I would have enough clay to act as a counterbalance against my top-heavy flowers. I'm using some non-hardening clay to fill the rest of the pot. Of course, I've got my clematis, and then I've got a little trellis here. This one that I'm using for this flower is kind of a little arch shape. And then I've got this little round acrylic rod. This is just to help me poke a hole in the clay so that I don't have to try and shove my flowers through and mangle them. All right, so like I said, I've already got my pot partially filled with the foam, and we're just going to add the clay on top. Now, non-hardening clay is a little bit hard at first, and then the more you work it, the softer it gets. And I am actually going to mold it to my container because I want it to go all the way to the edges so that it doesn't wiggle around inside my pot. Of course, my foam's moving around. Okay, so I've got my pot filled up to about an inch or so below the rim. And now it's time, I'm gonna add my trellis first. Well, let me think about this. Yeah, I think I'm gonna add the trellis first. And this is pretty simple. You just insert it in to your clay, shove it down as far as you can. So mine looks like this in my little pot. Before I can put my flowers in, I'm going to create a little pilot hole right in the center, right here, because that's where I want my flower stem to go into the clay. And then I'm planning on having the vine kind of go up this side of the trellis and then leaving the side bare. So I'm going to use just a little cylindrical object to make a little pilot hole, because otherwise you could technically just shove that down through the clay if you wanted to, but you do have to push a little bit hard and you might end up mangling your flowers or your stem. So I'm going to use a separate object to make that little pilot hole. And that's just going to go straight down, all the way down through the foam. And this little thing is a little bit skinnier than my stem, so I'm going to wiggle it back and forth to make that hole a little bit bigger. All right. So I've got my pilot hole put into my clay. So I can go ahead and put my flowers into the pot. Down into that pilot hole. I don't think I went down far enough. Let's try again. Oh, I did. I just need to cut my stems a little bit shorter. All right. So let's try with that stem a little bit shorter. See, do I like that height? Yeah, that should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to go with about that height. So my plant looks like this now. All right, so I'm going to go and see if there are any places where I can attach my vine to the trellis so it looks like it's climbing up it. Now, it technically doesn't actually need the trellis for support, but I'm going to act like it does and kind of weave my stem around in some places. Let's see. I think I could take this little tendril especially at the top and weave that around the trellis so that it's attached somewhere. Now I'm okay with that. If you want to attach it in more places, you can. I could bend this over a little bit more. I wonder if I could wrap this little bud stem around there. But now the little tendril's in the way. Okay, we're going to mangle it just a little bit and then I'll fix it. So I'm going to wind this around. Thank goodness I used 18 gauge stem wire for this one because I did a mini version. This is my mini size 15 one, so I used a thinner stem wire. All right. All right, so that worked pretty well there. So now I've got my clematis in the pot. All right, I've got my clematis potted. I've got it wrapped around my trellis a little bit. And now it is time to cover up this clay because I don't want to see that clay. It's not very attractive. So I'm going to cover it with some pebbles. You could use like little floral marbles, or you could use some moss down there, something I use quite often in my pot plants. I'm just going to add some little pebbles down there. All right, make sure that clay is all the way covered, and my clematis is finished and completely potted. I might go to the store and change those out for some white pebbles or something, but for now, I'm pretty pleased with how this one turned out. All right, now I'm going to quickly show you guys how to put some of these flowers in a vase. I've got those same little marbles that I used from my potting that I'm going to use inside my vase. You do want something heavy to go inside the vase to act as a counterweight against the flowers because they are top heavy. If you don't have anything in there, or if you have something really lightweight, it makes it more likely that the flowers could tip over. But if you have this weight down here, that helps keep it a little bit steadier. All right, now one more thing that will help keep it steady is I said in the PDF that you needed to leave the bottom little stem wires separate and not wrap them. This is so that we can kind of spread them out and make little legs in the bottom of our arrangement. That's going to help the little flower to stand up inside the vase, but they do all need to be trimmed to the same length. And again, you'll want to measure your stem against your vase to make sure you have the height that you want. And then we're going to insert them into the vase. Now my hole is a little bit small here, and I'm not going to be able to fit my stems in there while they're opened up. So I am going to need to squeeze them closed a little bit just to fit through the opening. But then, once they're through, I can kind of reach inside and spread them back open. Now, if your hole is a little bit tighter than this one, you could put a little tool in there, like a little cylinder rod you could shove in there to spread those open. All right. Then I can put them down, and my flowers should sit pretty well in the vase by themselves. So mine look like this, and my little vase just sitting there. But I am still going to add these little pebbles just to give it a little bit of extra stability. Now I do recommend a vase with a smaller hole for these, just because if you have a really wide hole with a skinny stem, then it kind of looks like your flowers have pants that are too big for them. So a smaller hole, but that does make it a little bit harder to get these pebbles in there. You do want to make sure that you're using something that will fit inside. Some of the larger ones are getting stuck. And you'll just continue filling until it feels like your plant is pretty steady. I'm probably going to put a few more in there later, but just to give you a general idea, that is how you will put your flowers in a vase. Now, after you get your flowers either in the vase or in the pot, you will want to do a little bit more reshaping. So when I was planning out my branch, I wanted a little stem that kind of drapes down the edge of my vase. So I could change that shape a little bit to make it drape down a little bit more. Make sure I've got enough curve in there. If I wanted to open up my branch a little bit, I could spread these apart or put them together. Just play around with the shape of your arrangement until you are happy, but also go through and make sure that your leaves are all bent and curled, because we don't really want flat leaves. And then what I do, instead of having, when we assembled, our leaves kind of look like this, where there's just a little V shape, I'm going to kind of pull on some of those So this is a vine plant and it doesn't just grow in straight lines. So I'm going to create some odd angles that gives us a little bit more of an organic shape. All right, now I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe I'll move this a little bit tighter in there. I don't know. Okay, I'll probably play with it a little bit more, but generally I'm pretty happy with how this arrangement turned out.